So joining me this morning is Adam Morke, CPA, CAA, and partner with, I shouldn't say CAA, so I should say CA, and partner with Stern Cohen. Hi, Adam. Thanks for joining me this morning.
Hi, good morning, Deval. How are you?
Thanks. So, yes, the exciting world of taxes, right? But we all have to deal with these things, the reality.
That's right. It's the one thing that everyone needs to deal with, especially this time of year, heading into the end of April.
Absolutely. So, what kinds of files are the CRA usually looking to audit when they audit each year?
Yeah, so some items vary year to year, but I guess I'll mention maybe a couple common ones that we tend to see every year that they're reviewing. And I'll split this maybe between personal tax and kind of a business tax side. I'll say on the personal side, what we've seen them looking at every year is claims for foreign tax credits. So that could be something like just the U.S. tax that you paid on dividends, or it could be if you maybe sold some real estate in the United States and you had to pay tax to the United States. They're actively looking for the support there because they don't want to give you credit for tax paid to another country unless you really paid it. And then things like charitable donations, medical expenses, especially big claims, anyone that's maybe paying a lot for a nursing home or an assisted living floor in a retirement home. And then on the business corporate side, a new one this year is we've been seeing questions about foreign exchange gains and losses, and they're questioning whether the loss is what we would say on account of income or on account of capital, which just means is the gain half taxable or is it fully taxable? We're also seeing really every year over the last probably 10 years questions about property flips. So they're always looking to see if you're flipping property, have you been reporting that, or have you been reporting it as a capital gain or as business income? Again, the distinction is whether it's half taxable. So several items that seem to be on their radar every year.
Wow. And then is there anything new that's coming up specifically for this year?
I think the newest one I would say has been the foreign exchange gain or loss. I think they've also, probably over the last couple of years, started to ask more questions about cryptocurrency. So I think there's this perception amongst the general public or some investors in cryptocurrency that CRA has no information about these transactions, but that is not necessarily true. Certainly the Canadian cryptocurrency exchanges have to report transactions of more than $10,000 to the CRA. And I think they've also been reaching out to individuals that are, say, social media influencers, where again, perhaps they think that they don't need to report this information or that they wouldn't be caught if they don't report this information. And that's certainly not the case.
Also as we go into the election, actually I shouldn't say go into the election. We are in the election, in the throes of it. And there's been lots of tax promises made by all three of the leaders. So can you give us some insight into some of the tax promises made by Mark Carney, Pierre Poilievre, and Jagmeet Singh?
Yeah, so I think especially the Conservatives and Liberals, that a lot of the policy announcements have been similar, maybe with various rate changes. So that, they both have said they're not going to move forward with changes to the capital gains inclusion rate, so it'll stay at 50% taxable. They've both said that they're going to lower the tax rate for the very bottom federal tax rate. There, the distinction is the Liberals are moving it from 15 to 14%. The Conservatives are moving it from 15 to 12.75%. And then we've seen, I think, some interesting proposals come from the Conservative Party. One as an example was adding an additional $5,000 limit per year to the tax-free savings account if you make investments in Canadian equity, so essentially Canadian public companies. We've also seen a suggestion about deferring capital gains tax if you sell investments but reinvest back into Canada. That one, I think the devil's in the details. I'd really like to see what the restrictions are, because if it's you can invest back into maybe any Canadian public company, and they can buy shares in any Canadian public company, that would apply almost to practically everyone. If it's more limited, which I think is probably how it would play out, to say you need to reinvest into like a small business in Canada, or maybe into the mining sector, the energy sector, then the usefulness of that may be a bit more limited.
So with that policy, I know that the U.S. does something similar. So how does it work in the U.S. in terms of will you reinvest that capital gains? If you happen to know, if you don't, sorry for asking that question.
Yeah, so the U.S., and I'm not a U.S. tax advisor, but my understanding of the U.S. rules is that it's generally limited to real estate. So if you have real estate, you sell real estate and you buy back into real estate within a certain time frame, you can defer that capital gain.
Okay,
I think what the Conservatives have proposed here is more broad, that it's not limited to real estate, and likewise that you're not having to reinvest into real estate.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And then, sorry, I probably interrupted you as you're going to get to Jagmeet Singh's tax promises.
Yeah, Jagmeet's promises, I mean, he's also had some about increasing what we call the basic personal amount. So that's basically the base amount that you can earn without there being federal tax. So we wanted to increase that to about $19,500. There's also been some comments about removing the GST on some essential items. I think he also came out with the idea of removing the GST on Canadian-made automobiles. I think some of the other parties have also pledged to do the same thing.
Interesting. So I guess, I guess they've all made claims. We don't know where it's going to go. And, it's such an interesting election race because it really is between two people. And so, yes, Jagmeet Singh can come out and say stuff, and so can the Green Party. But really, I think there's very few people paying attention. It's we're in a 2-horse race, so we'll see what happens. And hopefully, I mean, based on the polls, it looks like it could be Liberals. But I do hope that if the Liberals win, they will actually listen to some of the Conservatives' ideas when it comes to things like this, because I think that they do have some more fiscally minded ideas than the Liberal Party does. So anyways, we'll see how things shape up. But thanks so much for joining me, Adam. It's been great chatting with you this morning.
Thanks for having me. I hope you have a wonderful morning.
Thanks so much.